Okay, it's Wednesday, August 13th, 2003. We're at Lane Place, and tonight we're going to be interviewing Mike Martin, a Vietnam veteran. And we're going to talk a little bit about his experiences growing up and how he ended up in Vietnam and what he did there and what happened to him on his return. So first of all, Mike, introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Allen Martin. I was born in Portland, Tennessee, and came to Indiana around '62. I went back to Tennessee, finished high school, and was drafted in 1968.
Okay, currently?
Currently, I'm unemployed.
Okay.
Having a hard time finding a job.
Okay.
As a Vietnam veteran, I have a lot of problems. I've had problems with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay, we'll save that right now.
Okay.
We'll get into that. You mentioned today you applied for a job at Wabash College. And,
I did, yeah.
And
it was the Bon Appetit job, and they were asking for kitchen helpers and cooks. And
right.
That job was already filled.
Okay. So how long have you been unemployed?
Since March the 19th this year.
Okay. And prior to that, you were working where?
I worked for Ability Service for a year.
Okay. And you moved here to Crawfordsville approximately 2 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you come to Crawfordsville?
I met a friend here.
Okay. And
we started emailing, and then she got ready to move, and I come up to help her move, and I kind of got displaced from Indianapolis.
Okay. Okay, so a little background of where you are now. Let me go back to born in Tennessee. Where's Portland, Tennessee?
Portland, Tennessee is about the central part of Tennessee. It's right on the edge of Tennessee and Franklin, Kentucky, 20 miles from Bowling Green. I would have been a Kentuckian if I'd have been born 5 miles into Franklin, Kentucky. We're right on the Tennessee state line.
Okay.
That's in Summer County.
Yeah, Franklin, Kentucky, do they have a big auto plant there? That's not...
I don't think so,
okay.
no.
It's
a very small town.
I'm thinking of a different place.
Portland was a small town, too.
How big a town?
Well, you just drive through and there was a stoplight. It ain't like that anymore since the highway came in.
Okay, and
it's expanded.
You went to elementary school there? And
I went to elementary schools, first started at Madison, Tennessee.
Okay.
My dad was in the Air Force and stationed at Seward Air Force Base, so that's how come I was in Madison.
Ah, Seward Air Force Base. So your father made a career out of the Air Force?
Oh, yeah, he was about 17 years in the Air Force.
What did he do in the Air Force? What was his job?
He was an IO officer for SAC Command.
Okay.
So he spent a lot of time with strategic, air.
Did you ever spend any time in Omaha? Did he ever spend any?
No,
he wasn't at the SAC.
We spent a year in Alaska that the family had went to.
Okay.
Dad spent some time in Japan, Okinawa, Scotland.
Sure. So
everywhere.
Describe a little bit what it was like growing up as the son of an Air Force officer.
Well, it's pretty hard. Dad expected a lot, and Dad was kind of an alcoholic. He was a very stern disciplinarian. He taught us right from wrong, but sometimes he was a little free with, his punishment.
Right.
Because he was really strict. And he had a real temper problem, But Dad did the best he could, I guess. Nobody learns to be a parent,
True. It's true.
So I have to say now that what I know, that Dad did, like I said, Dad did his best.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I'm the oldest of 8.
Oh my gosh.
I lost one brother last year, train accident. There at the Pendleton facility. He was a training officer there.
Okay.
And he got caught between the tracks.
Okay.
In a PJ Cruiser, which the railroad said that he went between the rails, but that was a new car and he would have never done that.
Yeah. Right.
He got caught when one went up. I was told by some witnesses, and the other train hit him as he got caught between the poles.
Other brothers and sisters?
Most of them live in Indianapolis. I have one sister living in Texas right now.
Okay. So growing up as the son of an officer in the Air Force, By the way, was he in Korea or?
Yes, he was in the Korean campaign.
He was in the Korean. Did he ever talk about that at all?
Dad didn't talk much about what he did in the military.
Ah, okay.
Most of what he did with SAC was confidential anyway.
Okay.
Because he was on, you know, the SAC is always ready, and,
Right.
you know, Dad was always being called out for some kind of alert, you know.
So as an information officer, he was dealing with.
I think he did more than information. I think
Okay.
Dad was in the Navy in World War II. He was on a minesweeper in the Pacific. And he later transferred over to the Air Force. He wanted to fly, but he had trouble with cataracts, and he wasn't able to do that.
Okay.
So he wrote a desk.
Okay. And he didn't talk much about his World War II experiences at all?
No, he didn't. No, Dad didn't tell much about Korea or World War II.
Okay. So as you were growing up, moved a few times.
Yeah, a lot of times.
A lot of times.
A lot of schools.
Did you resent that?
It was hard. I never made too many close friends.
Yeah.
And just when you start to get established, you know, SAC says we go somewhere else, you know. We was at
Sure.
Barkstar Air Force Base in Louisiana. We've been to Lakeland, Texas. In the 1950s, the Air Force said that Dad had to leave because he had to get a medical discharge.
Okay.
He had cataracts and diabetes.
Okay. So you said you were the oldest in the family.
I was the oldest, yeah.
So did you feel a certain responsibility for raising your brothers and
Oh,
sisters?
I was given that responsibility
Okay.
for raising my brothers and sisters. I was responsible for everything they did.
Okay.
That was kind of hard on a young child.
I can imagine.
I didn't realize how much it was.
What was the age difference between you and the youngest?
I think we were about, well, let's see, Steve was a year younger than I was, and then Beverly was a year younger than him. So, you know, it ran between a year to 2 years.
Okay. Okay.
Paula was the last one, and she was born a little bit late.
Sure.
She kind of stepped in on Mom and Dad.
Did your mom support your father in terms of what he was
Well,
doing?
I think she did. You know, she was a pretty good mother to us. She was a good wife to him, you know. She took care of his uniforms and everything, made sure that, you know, he was okay.
Right.
Being the 8 kids, it was kind of hard with the food and stuff, you know.
Sure.
It was sometimes hard to feed us.
Growing up, did you go to any war movies?
Yeah, I saw Eddie Murphy when I was real young.
Ah.
In the Hell and Back, yeah.
Okay. So, and
Did
how
I want to be in the military?
Yeah.
I was in the Scouts in Bossier City, Louisiana. And later on, when we came to Plainfield, I was in Civil Air Patrol. So yeah, there was a kind of a leaning toward the military.
And when you saw the movie, it just kind of reinforced that desire?
Well, that and other movies I had seen, yeah.
Did you see any John Wayne movies?
Oh yeah, a lot of time. Dad was
Okay.
into John Wayne and
Okay.
all the, you know, the war heroes back in those days.
Absolutely. Read any books about war?
Even though I was I'm still interested in reading books on, you know, foreign policy
Right.
and everything. And keeping
No,
up
I
with
was
the
thinking
paper.
more when you were growing up. Did you read any?
Yeah, I read quite a few. Dad would supply that kind of
Okay.
stuff to us.
So was he
Most of the time we went to the movies, we did go to a war movie or
so
one with military.
on purpose, do you think? I mean, he was encouraging...
Well, I think he was. His family was military.
Okay.
You know, his father was in World War I.
Okay. So you have this tradition in your family of
I think
serving
we've
the
all been
country.
military, yeah. My brother that died last year, he was a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard,
Ah,
a battalion commander.
okay.
And he had just been, kind of like me, laid off from the military because,
Right.
you know,
Right.
downsizing.
Sure. Okay, high school.
High school
Where were
wasn't easy.
Where were you? You were in
I was
Tennessee?
in high school. I went to Avon for the 9th grade.
In
Indiana, yeah.
Indiana.
And then the 10th grade, I went to Plainfield.
Okay.
And then from Plainfield, I went to Portland, Tennessee, and finished my last 2 years.
Okay. So, what year did you graduate from high school?
1966, May the 20th.
Okay, 1966. Vietnam was already underway. Had
They
you
tried to get me right after I graduated.
Okay. Had you heard stories when you were in high school about Vietnam? Did you know anything about it?
In high school, I did a research paper on Vietnam.
What was the research paper?
It was on the Vietnam War.
Okay. Any particular aspect? Or
Well, just
how it
general,
started?
how the war started, what caused it and everything.
Okay. So,
I had no idea actually what was going on.
so Any impression that came out of doing the research for this?
I didn't want to go.
You didn't want to go?
No.
Despite the fact that your father was a military person, you'd gone to all these movies,
Right.
you didn't want to go. Why didn't you want to go?
Well, I wanted to be in the service I could be. I tried to get in the Air Force, and I tried to get in the Navy, and there was just such a waiting list. You know? And when I tried for the Navy, they said I had high blood pressure. But when the Army drafted me, the Army tried to give me July the 25th of 1966.
Which would have been right after graduation.
Yeah, and just before induction, I went to a skating ring and pulled my leg out, and I went up there to induction tape. So they tried to get me again on October 31st, November 11th, and I'd had appendicitis operation. So they were trying real hard.
So they were persistent.
Yeah. December the 7th, they drafted me.
Okay, you got drafted December 7th. Where did
1966. Yeah.
Where did you go? First place.
Well, I went to Gallatin, Tennessee, and then from there to Nashville, Tennessee, and to Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Okay, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Took some tests, and then you stayed there for basic training.
Yeah, I didn't make it too well at basic training.
Why not?
Because I still hadn't recovered from some of the operation,
Okay.
you know. And I ended up in a special training company, kind of for misfits and people that needed to work more on their PT.
Okay.
It was 8 hours of PT a day.
So
It was a rough outfit.
did you get recycled in basic training?
Yeah, into this company. yeah.
Okay. And eventually,
All of the sergeants and the DIs were 101st Airborne, and they had been to Vietnam, and they wanted to make sure that we were going to be able to handle it.
did they tell you stories?
Yeah?
What kind of stories did they tell?
Well, they would tell us stories, you know, we better keep our butt down, you know, because when you get over there, you know, you never know where Charlie is,
Right.
you know. So they would tell us stories in the way they trained us, you know. We'd run up and down the Fort Campbell, the hills and everything, hollering, I want to be an airborne ranger and all that, you know.
Right.
We had to shout it off real loud.
So were your ideas changing a little bit? Did you get into the spirit of all of this?
I got gun home.
You got gun home.
So you
wanted
I
to
started.
go.
I started bucking for Rick.
Okay.
So when I got to Fort Leonard Wood, I got my PFC finally.
Okay, so from Fort Campbell, you learned at the end of basic
Learned how to
training.
be a soldier.
Okay, but they gave you an MOS at that point.
I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay, and what was your MOS?
51B20, heavy construction carpenter.
Okay, heavy construction carpenter. You go to Fort.
8 weeks. They give you the test, and they give you a hammer and say you're a carpenter boy.
Okay, so a carpenter. Did you figure, gee, they're not going to need carpenters in Vietnam, or did they tell you?
That was a heavy levy MOS. You were going to go to Vietnam. if you
Okay,
had
they
that.
told you.
Yeah. Everybody I saw in the engineer school over there ended up in Vietnam.
Okay. So at this point, you still wanted to go? You were kind of
What,
still gun
for
ho?
Vietnam?
Yeah.
No, I didn't want to go. But I believed in serving my country, you know.
Okay.
I was patriotic. I had, you know, that had been drilled into me through the military life with my dad. You know, I had no idea what Vietnam was like. I went because I was told to serve.
Okay, so
I didn't think about going to Canada or anything, or running away, because I wasn't brought up that way.
Okay. Did you enjoy basic training in AIT?
No.
No, not at all. Even AIT?
AIT I enjoyed.
Okay, because you picked up some skills, right?
I
Carpentry
started to pick
skills?
up skills, and I also learned how to be a military soldier.
Okay. What's the secret to being a military soldier?
Well, you do what you're told to do.
Keep your mouth shut and
That's
head
right.
down.
That's hard to do after you're a Vietnam veteran, though.
Yeah, well, this is before, so you were. Make any friends in AIT?
Yeah, I made quite a few friends, but I can't remember them now. I mean,
But you're pretty sure all of them ended up in Vietnam.
I
at
think
some
they did,
point.
yes.
Okay. So after Fort.
I don't know where they went after that.
Okay, Fort Leonard Wood. Did you get a leave before you went to Vietnam?
I went to Fort Leonard Wood, then I went to Fort Bliss, Texas.
Okay.
13 Ordnance Company,
Okay.
Combat Support Group.
Okay, tell us what you did there at Fort Bliss.
Well, mostly all I did, I was TDY for building one of the floats that they were going to have in one of the parades there in El Paso. I spent a lot of time in the USO when I was on my off duties, and dancing and helping run the USO.
Okay.
I got a commendation for doing that, for being, you know, really good in the USO and being a, you know, the PR and everything.
So you're a PFC at this point?
No. Yeah, I was PFC.
Okay,
I didn't get Spec 4 till I went over.
okay. How long were you at Fort Bliss?
Probably about 6 months, something like
Okay.
that.
So you didn't mind this, right? It was pretty good.
Well, I really I was made barracks orderly of the company by the first sergeants.
Okay.
And I did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had this lieutenant come in one day and took me off and put me on KP, and I went and seen the first shirt, and he got in a little trouble. And he became later my platoon leader, and I came on levy for Vietnam.
So you think there's a connection?
Oh, I know there's definitely a connection. Because another guy that pissed him off went there too.
Okay. Now, you get your orders to go to Vietnam. Do you get a leave?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and you came, by then your family's still in Tennessee.
I got married before I went to Vietnam.
Oh, really?
18 days before I went to Vietnam.
How did this happen? How long did you know
I had
this?
known her all the time that I had been in, while I was at Fort Bliss. I'd come home on leave.
Okay. This is a girl back in Tennessee.
This is the girl that's back in Indiana.
Okay, I'm getting
Who
confused.
decided she wanted my allotment.
Ah, so 18
She
days.
didn't get it, her girlfriend was going to. Both of them, one of them was going to try for me. I didn't know that at the time.
So 18 days before you leave for Vietnam, you get married.
I went to the judge and got everything waived, yeah.
Okay, and she was pushing to get married.
Oh, yeah, pushing really desperately.
And what was your feeling about this? Why
Well,
did you say yes?
I didn't want to disappoint her, I guess.
Okay,
I was very naive, believe me.
okay. So you get married, and then where did you have to report in the U.S.? Out in Oakland? Or?
Oakland, yes.
Okay, so you went out to the Oakland Army Terminal.
Right.
And spent a couple of days there, and then...
Spent a couple of days there, and we went over by plane.
Okay, stops along the way?
Wake Island in the Philippines,
Okay,
Hawaii.
right,
We only spent an hour in Hawaii.
right.
Got to see a little bit of it.
Same.
Wake was so small,
Right.
there wasn't much to see. We spent a night in the Philippines because something happened in Vietnam. They said it was the plane, but we later found out that the airport that we had going into had been mortared
Okay.
that night.
So what date are we talking about here?
What day?
Yeah, approximately month and...
Probably in April.
April...
The April 18th was when I think I
Okay.
went over.
April 1966. Okay.
No, 68, I'm sorry.
68.
1968.
Okay.
We
April.
went from 1966 to 67 to 68.
Okay. Now, when you got drafted, I mean, you had a 2-year commitment.
Right.
At some point, you had to re-up for some time here, right?
No.
No.
No. They sent me over there with 9 months to go into service.
Okay. 9 months to go, they send you to Vietnam
That's right.
after you made this lieutenant angry.
I think that was part of it,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's unusual that you're going over.
But it was a heavy construction with a very critical MOS.
Okay, critical MOS. Where did you land in Vietnam?
I went first to Tan Son Nhut Airport,
Right.
then to Long Binh.
Okay, Long Binh
Then I
replacement.
got orders to go to Saigon, which
Okay.
was wrong.
Okay.
They sent me up there in combat engineers. I had the greatest breakfast, thanks to the Marines. They eat good. And then I found out my orders were wrong, and they sent me back to Quy Nhon, where I went to An Khê from there and joined the unit that I was going to be
Okay,
in.
and give us the unit name and all that.
I was with the 589th Engineer Group,
Okay,
18th Battalion, I believe it was, B Company,
okay. In Quy
35th
Nhon.
Group.
Where's Quy Nhon located in Vietnam?
It's on the coast, more north,
Okay,
in the Northern Highlands.
okay,
An Khê's a little bit further in there,
Okay.
inland.
okay. So a little south of Da Nang or
It's north of Da Nang.
north of Da Nang, south
Yeah,
of
I never
Cam
made
Ranh?
it to Da Nang.
Okay,
I mean, yeah, it's south of Da Nang, yeah.
all right, okay.
I'm saying I never made it to Saigon.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. South of Da Nang. When you first arrived, what was your impression with your unit?
Oh, I was told they had just mortared the NCO. They were trying for the officers' barracks, and they got the NCO barracks.
Who mortared them?
The Viet Cong.
Oh, okay.
They had shot mortars in that night.
Okay.
just before I got there.
Okay. So were you
So
scared?
well, I was scared when I got off the Tonfanute. Soldiers started surrounding us with military, everybody was just completely, masked up with flak jacket and everything else, and we were being closed order into the terminal.
Right.
I was scared that very day.
Okay.
And when I went to Da Nang, I was scared because they didn't give me a flak jacket, gun, or anything. Put me in the back of a pickup, running around in the dark streets of Da Nang before we got to our unit.
Okay. So what did you do in Queen Yan?
Excuse me. It's not easy to go back on this, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Stop for a minute.
Okay.
I was, when I got there, I reported to duty,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed we were on top of a real large hill.
Mm-hmm.
We were in these huts that maybe just, they were partially wood and they were screened up and just wood with wood floors and everything.
Sure. Right.
We had to have mosquito nets.
Okay.
I was finally issued a weapon, a flak jacket, and everything that I was supposed to have.
Did you get an M16 or an M14?
I got an M14 at first.
Right.
We later went to M16.
Okay.
I carried an M14 in basic.
Did you have to do any in-country training when you arrived in Vietnam, or once?
Before I left,
Da Nang?
Texas,
Oh, okay.
they did us some
They did some
subservience and training, and sit out in the rain, listen to instructor talk.
So you didn't have to do anything though once you got in country?
No training in country,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
I just went, we were considered a secure area, as long as the rocks were taking care of our artillery, and everything.
The rocks meaning the
Koreans, yeah.
Okay. So they were sort of
They were
providing
surrounded
perimeter
yeah.
support. Did you have any interaction with the Koreans at all?
Not much. I saw them around.
Yeah. What was their reputation?
They were pretty tough soldiers.
So you felt good?
So as long as you could hear the guns booming at night, you could sleep well.
Okay.
But when they got quiet, that's when you woke up and you knew we were going on alert.
At this unit, you were doing some construction.
We built a helicopter port and a fuel tower,
Okay.
and I helped work on that
Okay.
with a crane, and
Yeah.
we also laid about 2 football fields of PSP.
Okay.
The metal platform.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
I got pretty good with the jackhammer on that.
Okay. So strenuous,
Very strenuous.
Okay.
Very hard work.
and the temperature's pretty high and humidity's high. And
It was something I wasn't used to, but when I was young, I could handle it.
yeah.
You wore sunglasses all the time over
Right.
there because you look at the mountain, it's like glass.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Everything was bright.
Okay. What did you do in your off hours when you weren't working?
Well, most of the time I spent at the NCO club or drinking or something like that,
Okay.
or playing cards or
Okay.
whatever,
And
writing letters home.
by this point, you were a Spec 4?
I finally made Spec 4 as soon as I got to Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of boredom?
I didn't have time to be bored. I'm more scared
Okay.
of being bored.
Okay.
No, I don't think I slept very well over there at all.
Once
I was always tired.
you were there, did you ever have to go out and pull perimeter guard?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Describe that a little bit.
That was kind of scary. You went out there and, you're just maybe a small tent that you put together with your poncho or something like that. This one guy stays awake while the other sleeps,
Sure.
And then I had to, when I was on guard duty there, we had to pull perimeter guard in a tower. And we had the buttons for the mortars and, the claymores, and we had a machine gun
So
spotlight.
you had a lot of concertina wire out in front of you.
Concertina wire
And some
out,
mines
yeah.
in there, and claymores.
And you're always imagining something, You really have to keep yourself alert.
Right.
You don't go to sleep on perimeter. You just can't, because,
Okay.
if you do, they're going to come at you.
Right.
And they were known to do that.
Right.
They broke through several times.
Right.
Places I left.
Okay. So while you were doing this perimeter guard, either in the tower or in the tent, any attacks that occurred, or?
Well, you might have occasional animal go through the
Okay.
Constantine War.
And it scared the hell out
No
of you.
attacks on me, no.
Right.
Not at that time, no.
Okay. So how long were you at Quinyon?
We moved from Quinyon to Pleiku.
Okay, you were in Pleiku also.
Yeah, and then we went to a place called Khartoum for a couple of days.
Okay. Describe Pleiku. What was that like?
It was a kind of a bustling city, you know, there was a lot of cars and bicycles, and there was this big 73rd Airborne insignia on this mountain, and it was a straight up area, you know. You had the mountain up there, and it's kind of like a valley, and there's hills around that. Vietnam is so different with the terrain. It could be hilly one time and flat another.
Right.
But Quinyon and Pleiku was real hilly part. That was part of the Northern Highlands, yeah.
Right.
That's when I started doing convoy duty.
Okay, explain a little bit about convoy.
Well, when you go on a convoy, you're not with your outfit. You're with the driver. So whatever the driver does, you do. You know, so you're not really, no one's in command. I like the kind of duty because I didn't have to report to anybody in authority.
Sure.
You know, and we pretty well do whatever we wanted to do, you know, as long as we got the convoy through.
Okay, so you were taking supplies to different
Back
places.
and forth from Quinyon to Pleiku.
Okay. What's the distance between Quinyon and Pleiku, would you say?
God, I guess it would be 100, 200 miles or something.
Okay.
It seemed that way to me, the way we traveled the road. You go straight up a mountain and you could just look down and see the ocean and everything, you know.
How many trucks in a convoy?
Probably about 10 or 20.
Okay, 10 to 20 trucks.
Depends on what they're carrying.
Okay. Was there some support, armor?
Well, yeah, you had the helicopters, you know, overhead. And,
Okay.
you know, we also, every one of us, to ride shotgun, you're carrying your weapon. It's fully loaded.
Okay.
You know, you're locked and loaded. We had 2 trucks ahead of me. One of them was a motor pool truck, and it got hit by a rocket. That was pretty close.
Okay.
The people were killed, and you know, whatever they were carrying was scattered all over the thing.
Right.
And the truck was blackened. And we just had to go drive on.
Just kept going, left them there.
We had no, there was someone, you know, taking and mopping up.
Right.
Because we didn't want to leave anybody in the area,
Right,
you know.
exactly. So how many of these convoy trips did you take, do you think?
I think I took numerous of them. I think I took at least maybe 10 or 12 of them.
Now, this is strictly volunteer?
No, I was assigned.
Okay, you were
But
assigned.
I would have volunteered just to get out of garrison duty.
Okay, so...
Because in garrison duty, we had a situation that happened. I believe it was in Pleiku or on K. We had a gentleman that had went to the NCO, and there was 2 guys fighting in the barracks, and he come back, he was drinking just a little bit. And they were really yelling, and the one of them picked up an M79, shot to the other, and it blew a hole in his chest big enough to walk through.
Whoa.
So after that, our weapons were locked in cabinets, and I went on convoy to keep my weapon. I didn't want to have my weapon or get somebody else's weapon that they didn't take care of.
Was that typical, that there was fights and
Yes.
tension?
Yeah, that was typical.
Racial issues on your base?
I think it was mostly the tension of being in a war zone.
Okay.
You know, things seemed to run high with the tension and the anger and the temper and everything.
And the alcohol?
I think alcohol had a lot to do with it, and I think drugs did. But I never did that.
Okay. What kind of drugs were being used, do you think?
I think they had pot, hashish, whatever they could get over there. It's pretty plentiful.
Okay.
The only thing I ever did was the alcohol, and I got pretty bad with that.
Okay. So it was kind of scary. I mean, you've got
It was
these
scary all the time.
people who are, maybe some people doing drugs, other people drinking.
Nobody wants to get to know anybody really well because they never know whether they'll be there the next day or something like that. Even if you're in a secure area, when you go on convoy duty or you go out of your perimeter, you don't know whether you're going to come back or not, you know.
Was there a tension between the enlisted men and the officers?
Yes, very much so.
Why?
Usually it was because the officers had come from training, and they really hadn't much experience in the combat. And some of the people that were already in combat didn't like the platoon leaders or something like that telling them what to do. You know, they were green and everything, and they called them 90-day wonders.
Right.
You know.
Did you ever see any physical violence against officers?
No, I did not.
No. I mean, there are stories about Fridays.
Yeah, I know. It
Like
wasn't anything like that in our group.
Okay.
We had some pretty good officers, really. You know, they treated me well.
So, at what point in this 9 months are you at Pleiku? Is it like half?
We went from Pleiku, the rest of the unit left Pleiku on a LST. My unit went by coast to Phan Rang, Vietnam, to establish some more construction in the Phan Rang Air Base.
Okay.
And we went a route which most military did not travel. It was a coastal area. We had an M50 machine gun mounted on the back of a 5-ton dump truck. And we were locked and fully loaded. It was really a scary trip there. We were the support group going in, putting in the electricity. I was in like a service squad.
Right. How long a trip was this?
Oh, it was probably about 2, maybe 3 or 4 days.
Now, did you get an R&R when you were over there?
No, I didn't take the R&R.
Okay. Why not?
My ex-wife and I were not. At that time, I never went to we were assigned to a group of the National Guard, the 116th Engineer Group, who got drafted over there.
Right.
We went to build a compound for them. I think the place was named Sea Lynn. It was real high in the upper highlands. So while they were there, we were in like a bowl with, you know, a berm around it and everything.
Right.
Well, this turned out to be a mountain yard graveyard, so there was quite a bit of conflict over that, you know. So I went back to Phan Rang to see a JAG lawyer, because at that time I had decided to cut all allotment and everything to her. So while I was gone, it was a 6-hour firefight. I missed that.
You missed that. Let's get back to your wife. What made you decide that you were going to cut off her allotment?
Well, I was hearing some things from my dad that I didn't like, you know, like some things that she was doing, which I found out to be true. I was sending her $230 home a month, and she was taking and just blowing that money and going on trips, and she had stopped working and everything else. I thought, well, we'd have a little nice little nest egg when I got home. There was only $400 left. They'd had my half month, sending $230 a month home allotment. That looked pretty good, you know. It was good, you know.
Sure. Okay, let's get back to the war stories here. While you were over in Vietnam, I mean, it's 1968.
Right.
So there are protests going on back in the United States. Were you aware of the protests?
We were aware of them, but I had no idea until I got out of Vietnam how bad it was.
Okay.
And I read the Pentagon Papers, and after that, I started to see some movies about the protests, and I began to realize we didn't know what they were protesting anyway, but we thought over there that we should have been there. We were fighting the war. Right. The only thing we felt that we should have fought the war, you know, but we were in a police action. We could only fire when we were far proponed.
So you felt really restricted in terms of
I felt like over there I was taking up space. I felt like somebody didn't want me back home.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Did you have any interaction with the Vietnamese at all?
Yeah, I got along real well with the Vietnamese. Of course, you didn't know whether they were Charlie. They might be Charlie in the daytime and Charlie, you know, your person that cleans your shoes, irons, and then they might be the Viet Cong at night.
Right. So these were all.
But I got along very well with the Vietnamese. They were good people. There was children that needed someone. You know, they were always asking for candy or something like that.
Right. So these were all the Vietnamese working on the base.
Right. Vietnamese working on the base. And I went off base a couple of times.
To some of the villages?
Some of the villages, yeah.
What was your impression of the villages and their lifestyle and the culture?
It's mostly like a carnival atmosphere.
How so?
They were trying to take anything they could get off the GI. as far as money, selling cigarettes and their wares and everything. They had these tea houses where you could go in and talk to a girl, you know, and all you had to do is just keep buying her tea, you know. So it was someone to interact with while you were there.
Did they speak English?
Well, yes, they did.
Really?
There was an incident where I was in this tea house in Van Rang outside the perimeter, and I think the Air Force must have set this up. But there was some kind of disturbance out in the streets, and she told me to leave the tea house and go by in the back room. And then she called me back and said it was over. I guess I wasn't supposed to be there at that time.
Okay.
I didn't go back after that.
Okay. Attitude, you mentioned the fact that you felt as if the war wasn't being waged the way it should be in the military.
I think every military person believes that.
Okay.
You know, after the war was over and everything,
Right.
and how we surrendered and all the stuff we threw in the,
Okay.
you know, the bay and everything. And I built those compounds over there. You know, I helped fortify that country, and then we give it to the Viet Cong. We give it back to the North Vietnamese. That was all wasted time as far as I was concerned.
So there's a certain bitterness now.
I think I had a lot of bitterness
Okay.
now. I realized that I was shortchanged by my country.
Okay. Let's
And I'm still being that way.
before we get to that, I want to finish off
Okay.
the Vietnam tour. One or two incidents that really stand out that have just stayed with you as a result of your time in Vietnam. Are there certain images or
You mean as far as the flashbacks?
yeah, anything?
Well, I felt myself when I've had dreams of someone chasing me.
Okay.
I've also had times when I would be driving that I would be watching around every corner, and I would go into, you know, where I thought, and then when I was working with the gangs on the east side of Indianapolis, I felt like I was in a war zone. That's when I returned back to the VA. That took 40 years.
Okay. Okay.
And they were shooting fireworks over our head. The fireworks were going all around everywhere, you know, in this gang situation.
Right.
You know, this was around July 4th. Plus you were seeing people moving them really fast. It was just like being back in combat.
Sure. Sure. A specific incident, not a flashback, but an incident in Vietnam that sort of represents for you, sort of symbolizes your whole tour, or something you've really taken away. Was it an experience on a convoy, seeing that truck blown up in front of you?
I think that had a lot to do with how I felt, and also the feelings that I felt in Da Nang without being any kind of combat gear. I wasn't able to protect myself.
Okay, so you felt helpless. You were just walking.
I felt helpless. I felt scared. It was the same way I felt those nights when I got back,
Okay.
when I was dealing with the gang. I felt like I was not in control. There was nothing I could do about the situation.
Any positive experiences in Vietnam?
Well, I think Vietnam is a beautiful country to be so war-torn. I saw a lot of beautiful landscape. I did get through a typhoon. I went out in the rice paddies to pick up a truck, and we were almost blown off the dump truck. We were fully combat gear and everything else. So really storms don't bother me as much because I've been in the worst.
Okay, there's a plus.
Any positive things?
Again, you met some interesting people.
I think I met some interesting people.
Okay.
I saw some beautiful country.
Okay.
I got a chance to go into the Orient,
Okay.
which a lot of people that are Vietnam vets have thought about going back.
Sure.
I don't know if I could go back or not.
Okay. 9
I have a
months.
lot of bitterness. I think that's why it's so hard to feel positive.
Okay. 9 months, you're done. Where do you leave from? Where did you leave country?
Well, we left from Cam Bay.
Okay, flew out of Cam Ranh. Now, one of the things about Vietnam that made it different was this individual entrance and exit. You didn't come back with a whole unit of your people. You came back by yourself.
I came back with strangers.
Right, okay.
And they came back with me as a stranger.
Describe the experience on the airplane at Cam Ranh after you took off.
The best time I ever had. You talk about shouting and screaming and everything. We were so afraid that we would, even after we got off the ground, somebody was going to shoot us down. It wasn't until we got over the ocean that we really felt free. We felt like that we had been trapped over there. We couldn't see our family, and we're going home to see our family. That was the best feeling I've ever seen.
While you were over there...
I was thinking about the freedom I had, too.
While you were over there, did people write to you a lot?
Yeah, I had several people from the USO in El Paso write for me.
Okay.
My family wrote to me, and you know, I had friends wrote to me. I got pretty much, and my ex-wife wrote to me, you know.
Now, in those letters, did these people talk at all about what was going on in the U.S.?
No, I don't think most of them didn't want to tell me.
Okay.
I don't think they wanted us to know how bad it was over here.
Okay, sure.
Now, this was a war that we could see on TV, and I had shortwave radio. I knew a little bit what was going on.
Okay.
You know, but you don't pay that much attention when you're fighting, when you're in a war zone.
All right.
You pay attention to your job and what you have to do.
And not the politics.
And not the politics.
Staying alive becomes the...
Then the politics come after you get back.
Okay. So you're on this plane, you leave Cameron. Where did you stopped where on your trip home?
We stopped in, we went over Japan. We didn't stop in Japan.
Okay.
I think we stopped again in Hawaii.
Okay.
We spent about an hour in Hawaii.
Okay. Much different feeling this time, right? If you're in Hawaii.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Coming home.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you see any people going over?
Oh, well, yeah, for Fort Lewis, those people going back.
Yeah.
You know, people were on the planes. We saw the guys coming into reception, you know, and everything, going to Oakland, and we just come back.
So what were your feelings at that point? Did you feel sorry for them? Were you...
I was short-timer. Why should I? I was out of there.
Okay. So...
No, I didn't feel sorry for them.
Okay. So you out...
I had to go. Why shouldn't they?
You out-process at Oakland. And about how long did it take you to out-process?
About a day or two.
Okay. And then you hopped on a plane and flew back to Tennessee?
No,
Where did you go?
They bought us a steak dinner. We had a drink. They gave us new uniforms. I went back to Indiana.
Okay. Where in Indiana?
Indianapolis.
Okay. You landed in Indianapolis.
Well, I went from Chicago to Indianapolis,
okay.
Yeah.
Wearing your uniform?
Yeah.
Any reactions on the plane? You were on a commercial airliner coming back.
The plane was, the people that were on the plane were great. It was when you got off the airplane.
Okay, explain.
That you had snide remarks and people look at you like, you know, and call you baby killer and everything else. I didn't have any idea what that was all about.
In Indianapolis, at the airport, they were calling you baby killer?
There was a couple punks, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So, what was your feeling? Did you want to strangle them?
Sure.
Yeah.
But you know.
But you're by yourself now.
I'm by myself and I want to get home. To heck with them.
Okay, you arrive home. Welcoming home party for you by your family? Or?
Not really. Mostly welcome home by my ex-wife.
Oh, okay.
We tried to live together for 3 months after I came back.
So, those 3 months, did you try to get a job? What were you doing during
You know what I wanted to do? I wanted to come home and just veg out. I had to get a job. I went to work for Penn Central as a car inspector. That didn't work out.
Okay.
I went from a hot climate to a blizzard.
Right. Because you arrived back in the U.S. what month?
In December.
November of '68.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So cold weather, difficult adjusting.
Then in December we had real bad snow. It was really cold. You go out there on a car as a car inspector and you're used to hot climate. I ended up getting sick. I ended up getting real bad cold. I ended up in the Veterans Hospital for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So describe the next 10 years. I mean, what was it like? Different jobs, moving around, what was happening?
Well, I think one of the things was when I first come back from Nine, I was hard. Nothing really fazed me. Somebody died in the family or somebody, well, you know, it just didn't faze me.
Right.
I felt cold, dark, and, you know, isolated. It was not what I expected when I came back.
Right.
I thought I was going to get away from the lines. I didn't. I found out the employees were a lot harsher than the military people that I had to serve under.
Right.
I thought it was unfair.
Did you talk about your experiences at all during this period?
Not very much. I drank a lot.
Yeah, you drank a lot. Did you hook up with any other Vietnam veterans in Indianapolis?
I tried to stay away from them.
Why?
I really didn't want to be remembered.
Okay, so you didn't want to talk about this experience?
No, I didn't want to talk about it.
Did you ever talk with your father about the experience?
Not very much at first, no.
Yeah, okay.
Dad and I was not really that close.
Okay.
Dad was not a very affectionate person.
Okay. So when did you get divorced?
Let's see, we got a divorce, let's see, it was in like August.
Okay, 69.
Yeah.
Okay. What were some of the jobs you've done since Vietnam?
Well, since Vietnam, I worked, like I said, at the Penn Central. I had about 11 jobs when I first got out.
Okay.
Because I was having trouble, adjusting.
And why were you having trouble adjusting?
I guess it was a new atmosphere. I went over there knowing what I was and what I could do and everything. When I came back, everybody would hire me. I had no problem with getting hired.
Right.
Because I was a Vietnam veteran.
Right.
I think one of the things that really pissed me off when I first come back, I went into a liquor store and tried to buy liquor, and he said I was too young. I went and got my DD-214 and brought it to him, and I said, here, I went to Vietnam, I carried a weapon, you sell it to me.
So you were only like 20 at this point?
About 20.
Yeah.
I was 21 while I was in Nam.
Okay, okay,
So I was about 22 when I started
okay.
trying to find a job. I had a hard time keeping a job.
And you attribute this to the Vietnam experience?
I didn't know it at the time.
Right. When did you begin to discover that maybe some of these issues were related to the military experience?
Well, it was probably in 1984.
Okay.
I had a real traumatic time there with another divorce.
Okay.
Marriage.
Okay. Now, in '82, there was the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Did that affect you in any way?
Oh, I was glad to see us finally get some recognition.
Have you been to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial?
No, I've been to the portable one. I'd love
Okay.
to go to the one in Washington, but I wouldn't want to go by myself.
Why not?
Well, in the portable one, you really couldn't see the names as much. There's more. It seems like there's more of an atmosphere there at
Right.
the wall of
There
guys
is.
is gone.
There is.
Really, sometimes they say it's best to go with other vets.
Right.
And I was a member of a group when I was in Indianapolis. I'm sort of out of the loop.
Okay, you were with a Vietnam Veterans group over
Yeah.
there?
Before I came to Crawfordsville.
Were there a lot of Vietnam vets in the group, or not?
There was Air Force,
Sure.
just about different.
And what did you do? What was the purpose
We just
of the
talked
group?
about it helped us.
And it did help?
Well, I think it did. It helped us know that we wasn't the only one, and there was some interaction, and there was some positive reinforcement from the
Okay.
group.
So '84 marks the point when you're really beginning to
That was I didn't start. I think it was in right before I come to Crawfordsville, that I started really getting. 40 years after I was, which would be 1998 or 99.
Okay.
That's when I started have to deal with the problem.
Okay, and these were flashbacks?
The flashbacks and a lot of depression.
Okay. Did you go to the VA?
No, I went to a Veterans Outreach Center.
Okay. Over in Indianapolis?
Yeah, in Indianapolis.
And
Saw a counselor, joined the
Okay.
group.
okay. And these are other veterans?
These were other veterans,
And
yeah.
you're talking about experiences and sharing
Right,
feelings
yeah.
and all of that. Was that helpful?
I think it was very helpful. We had a good counselor, Chuck
Okay.
Leitner.
Okay.
He used a method called thought field therapy, which really helped us, because he would have us draw upon the feelings that we had, and we would, with the thought field therapy, so it was kind of like tapping, that you tap the points of the acupressure, and you would think of these feelings, and then you would keep tapping certain points until the feelings become negated.
Right.
They no longer bothered you.
Right.
So that was a great help.
Right. Did you ever think about going back to school at all when you came back from Vietnam?
Well, I wanted to go to college before I got drafted,
Right. Right.
No, I spent 11 and a half years as a correctional officer at Indiana Boys School.
Okay.
So that was my longest career job.
How did you get into that occupation?
As a veteran.
As a veteran?
My brother worked there in corrections, as I've told you.
Right.
And I decided that it was a good job.
Sure.
So I went over to IYC, which is, you know, the adult prison there in Plainfield. Somehow my application got routed over to boys' school, and that's how I got into boys' school.
And what were your impressions of this job? Did you enjoy it, or?
It was very rewarding.
Yeah. Why?
I was affecting change in people.
How
Sometimes by being a positive reinforcement, a role model, and, you know, really delving in, helping them, you know, interacting.
What age group are you dealing with?
14 to 18.
Okay.
I ran a dorm sometime at night with 100 students, 40 to 100 inmates,
Right.
or what we call students. Because
Did you talk to them at all about your Vietnam experience?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. How did they respond to that?
they were interested.
Yeah.
You know, some of them were talking about, you know, even though they were, you know, they had performed criminal activity, they were talking about going to service. So they wanted to know a little bit about the service.
So it enhanced your credibility?
There was also a lot of Vietnam veterans there at the boys' school that was working there as correctional officers.
Okay.
So there was a lot of camaraderie there. You
Right.
know.
Right. Okay. Let's go back to your outreach group. Do you still keep in touch with the group? Do you go
By
over there?
email, yeah.
By email. Okay.
I haven't really had a chance to go to
Right.
a meeting with the
Right.
group.
Right.
That would be quite a reunion.
It would be.
And we've increased in numbers since then.
Why do you think there are so many Vietnam veterans needing some sort of outreach group and to talk through these problems?
We weren't debriefed. We were told to forget, told to put it out of our mind, go back to society and live our lives. Forget about Vietnam.
Okay.
It's over. You're back. You know, forget about it. Well, you can't forget. You know, every time I meet a veteran, I remember. Every time I see a veteran that's disabled, I remember. I think myself, I've become one of the greatest encouragers for veterans and for, you know, how do you say it, you know, wanting to support the veterans,
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
as a veteran.
Right.
I'd like to see us get our fair shake.
Right.
You know, right now I'm in litigation with the veterans for the PTSD claim, which they're denying everything happened that I told you about just now on film, that any of that has happened.
They're claiming...
They're claiming I was a carpenter. That was all I was. There's no record showing any of this. Or they won't find them or whatever, I don't know.
There's no record showing that you were in Vietnam?
No, I'm the second, well, let's see. They turned me down twice. I'm in appeal again.
And
for a PTSD claim.
And their claim is not, they acknowledge...
They're saying I'm lying.
Lying about everything, or lying about
everything
the PTSD?
about PTSD.
Oh, okay.
And the convoy duty and all that. They said you were a construction engineer and that's what you were.
In Vietnam?
Yeah.
But you didn't have any of these other experiences?
I didn't have any of those other
And therefore you shouldn't suffer
Why
from
would I
it.
feel that way?
Yeah.
If I didn't have them, why would I be,
Right.
you know, why would they bother me now?
Why do you think they're trying to deny your claim?
I don't know. I have no idea why they're trying to deny my claim.
Yeah.
I think they try to wear us down.
Do you know any other people who have
Oh yeah, they've all
lost?
had trouble.
Really?
Some have got lawyers and got their claims. It's like trying to get Social Security in Indiana. That's not easy either. Even though you got medical records up to Yazoo, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're pretty bitter about this whole experience.
Well, I think every veteran is now. You know, we come back, and what about the guys coming back from Iraq? Are they going to experience the same thing?
So how do you feel about the war in Iraq? I mean,
I think we're almost in another Vietnam. We're occupying a country we're not going to win in.
So
They don't want us there.
So you see certain parallels between Iraq
I see
and
every
Vietnam.
occupation we're doing overseas as a parallel.
Yeah. So this gung-ho spirit, that was present a couple of months ago, you think eventually it's going to wane and people are going to begin to question?
I think the people are already questioning. You know, what are we doing over there? How much have we accomplished? We've already lost life. Sure, we lost life doing a job. Well, was it necessary?
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
I was for the war, but let's get in a war and get out of it.
You were for the Iraq War.
I was for the Iraq War.
But now you're starting.
I was for taking Saddam Hussein out. I think everybody in the country said that he needed to go.
Right.
But I wasn't for us staying there. I wasn't for us staying in Bosnia. Some of the things we're in, I don't think we should have been in.
You mentioned you read the Pentagon Papers when you got back. What was your response to the Pentagon Papers?
I was mad.
Why?
Because I'd been lied to. The war wasn't necessary. We could have got out in Truman's administration, but we didn't do it. We overextended ourselves. Then it was too late.
How could we have gotten out in Truman's administration?
We sent advisors over there. You know, they knew what was going on. When we started sending military troops there, I think we should have got out. It was a civil war. I know that America feels like they've got to fight communism. You know, and I'm against communism just as the same as the next guy. But there comes a time you have to say, it's time to leave. We didn't do it. We overextended ourselves and more people got killed. Not in war situations, but just like it's happening over there. In times, things that's not war, you know, people that's getting killed over accidents or someone, you know, whatever, you know. Right. Just being there. It's a dangerous situation.
Knowing what you know now.
Would I win?
Yes.
As a patriotic American, I guess I would.
I mean, given what you're at.
I'm proud to serve my country.
Okay. So you would have gone?
I think I would, yeah.
Okay. Most of the guys in this outreach group feel the same way? That
they would have felt the same way.
They would go.
They may think, too, that the war is okay over there. Okay. But I don't think about it. They don't want to see another Vietnam.
Okay. So,
3 minutes.
Okay.
3 minutes.
Wrapping this up, is there anything you'd like to say to kind of end this interview? Any message that you want to convey to people?
Well, I'd like to say my country, I serve my country, and I don't think that I should have to go through, and every other veteran to go through the hassle to be reimbursed for something we really didn't want to do in the first place. We didn't. We could have got out of there. Why didn't we? Why didn't we fight the war? Why didn't we win the war? And I think American people should realize every time we go overseas that we could have another Vietnam.
Okay.
Vietnam was there. We can't throw it underneath the rug if it's real.
So we have to deal with it.
We have to deal with it. The veterans have to deal with it. The government's going to have to give us a little more help.
And the government needs to help veterans.
They need to help the veterans.
Okay, good place.
The veterans need to help each other.
Okay. We're going to end it there.
Wow.
Great, Mike. Thank you.